welcome to Anupali. Thank you once again for joining me. It has been an extremely full week of activities, and tomorrow I begin an official visit to the Republic of Cuba. On Wednesday of last week, I participated in the Caribbean Financial Access Roundtable in Barbados, along with other Caricom heads, to discuss critical issues regarding correspondent banking relationships, de-risking, anti-money laundering, and related banking issues. The meeting was co-chaired by U.S. Congresswoman Maxine Waters and included other senior officials from the U.S. House Financial Services Committee. Among the outcomes of the meeting, the U.S. congressional delegation agreed that this issue is of significant importance and deserves a congressional hearing. There was also an agreement to convene an annual U.S. Caribbean Banking Forum and to incorporate access to correspondent banking relationships into aid and development relationships with developing states like ours. I personally thought the meeting was quite productive and certainly addressed some of the issues we have as a region with de-risking and correspondent banking. I look forward to our concerns being examined in greater detail, and I thank Congresswoman Waters for the commitment to advance this matter with a view to finding common workable solutions. I must say that I was very impressed and grateful to Congresswoman Maxine Waters for her generosity, her compassion, and the profound concern which she has shown for us in the region. So I really want to thank her and God bless her. Later in the week, I also met with the director of the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. E13, who is leading the delegation here to assist with the creation of a new strategy to build resilience in our health systems. While here, the PAHO team will also focus on primary health care and the movement towards universal care that benefits all our citizens. I was also quite pleased to welcome a team from the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, ECHO, for a visit to assess our plans for the construction of an international airport. The ECHO team conducted a visit to the airport site in Wesley on Friday, and we embraced the opportunity to collaborate with and seek advice from the regional civil aviation body as we forge ahead with plans for the international airport. I also received the Japanese ambassador to Dominica. We touched on our bilateral relations, and I want to say to all of us, as we know, Japan has been a very sincere friend of Dominica, and it was a wonderful exchange with the Japanese ambassador. On this episode of Anupali, we can talk about this and many other matters because I have once again invited two journalists to interact with me and ask pertinent questions on behalf of you, the people of Dominica. I have with me Mr. Curtis Matthew, the news editor at DBS Radio, and Mr. Carlisle Baptiste, the owner of Nature Isle News. Gentlemen, welcome again to Anupali. It is wonderful having you. What I normally do once I have journalists with me, I pass over the hosting of the Anupali to yourselves, and towards the end, I will reclaim it. And so that between yourselves, you will manage the time and decide on how you go about asking the questions. I always defer to the Dean of Journalists in Dominica, Mr. Curtis Matthew.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. It's always a pleasure being on your Anupali program. I want to go, first of all, to ask about Dominica and Syria. You indicated last month that Dominica suspended diplomatic relations with Syria indefinitely. What is the status at the moment with these relations between Dominica and Syria?
Well, that decision by the government has gone through, and we have written to the Syrian authorities on this matter. As you know, I issued a national address on this matter because I felt it was very important that I articulated the issues relating to that decision to establish relations with Syria. Syria, yes, is a member of the United Nations, it's recognized by the United Nations, but obviously there are concerns there. So that matter has been settled, and certainly we have fulfilled the decision to terminate that relationship. Yeah.
Speaking about that, PM, the Russian war is still going on.
Yeah.
It has a lot of impact for us in the region. How much is it affecting us in the region, oil pricing, etc.?
Well, certainly it's affecting us. I mean, the oil prices you've seen have gone up, and they keep going up. And once you have oil prices going up, then the number of things are going to go up. Shipping, transportation, food production, and also you have to look at the fact that not only oil prices, but there are a lot of commodities, raw material and processed material, added value material, which come from Russia and Ukraine. And with not having access to these supplies, it means therefore it is affecting global supply. The whole value chain has been dramatically affected. And so it's having, for small countries like ours in the Caribbean, certainly it's having a huge impact. It is also going to have an impact on our own fiscal position in Dominica. Because in an effort to seek to ameliorate and to cushion the impact of the increasing price at the pump for consumers, we now have to consider removing the customs service charge on diesel and petroleum products. You recall when we had these challenges in Iraq and also in Afghanistan, we had to remove the excise tax and the customs service charge on kerosene and LPG. And this has been so since then. So there are no taxes, government taxes, on LPG and kerosene for over 10 years. People don't know that, people don't remember that. And that was an effort to cushion the impact of the increase in prices on consumers, because we know kerosene is something that we use as working class people. And LPG, everybody uses LPG. And so now we have already taken a decision, and that will come to effect soon, to remove the customs service charge on diesel and gasoline. And we're looking at even reducing the excise tax on these two commodities. What does that mean for us? It's going to see a reduction in revenues to the Treasury. And obviously, that's been compounded by the challenges we've had with COVID-19. So really, this thing going to come at the worst time for the entire world, Dominica included.
Well, how will that impact on the consumer in Dominica if the oil prices continue to rise on, let's say, a monthly basis?
Well, then that's where it comes with our own individual consumption practices. We have to prioritize, we have to manage money, not spend money. And we really have to deal with the priorities, because the reality is a lot of these prices sometimes, it's imported inflation. The prices, when this goods landed a particular price, you can't sell it less than that which it has landed here. Otherwise you'll be out of business. So it's a reality, and of course we'll be having discussions with the DIC on this, and to see how we can work together. Because every time people look to government to taking out taxes and so forth, but once the government takes out taxes if the government would take out taxes on everything, what's going to happen? See, so there has to be this understanding that the government needs revenue to do certain things. And even if you will say, well, it'll come in Dominican, people will pay this and people will pay that. But if you don't have the revenue from those goods and services, then it makes government's life more difficult to provide the services to the country. So it is for governments, it's a huge challenge.
Still on that, PM, that situation still becomes or remains a vexing issue as it relates to the Syria matter. Ambassador Lauren Barnes-Roberts, by the way, have you yet appointed a new ambassador?
No, that will be done very soon. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that will be done very soon.
There's a time frame?
No, there's no time frame. Our current ambassador, her term comes to an end in end of May, so May 31. So in effect, we still have an ambassador there. Obviously, the ambassador is on leave, but we still have an ambassador in effect. But she will demit office at the end of May of this year. So once that is done, then we will move to seek agreement from the UN for the appointment of a new ambassador.
But do we have somebody already in mind?
We have some people in mind, but I'm not in a position to disclose those names which are under consideration.
Yep.
As he mentioned, the ambassador for the UN, who are our representatives at the OAS and at the US?
The OAS too, we, as you know, Ambassador Henderson was the ambassador there. So we will be, before the summer, be appointing an ambassador to the OAS and to the US as well, and also a high commissioner to London. So these are three critical posts that we're hoping to fill by the summer of this year.
What is the position with Kelvadaru?
Kelvadaru is the deputy head of mission. So he's a deputy permanent representative of Dominica to the United Nations. So he's the second in command at the UN.
I don't want us to dwell too much on the Syria Lauren Barnes issue, but we have to get to Domlek. Yeah. A decision was taken. A lot of people are saying, why haven't you divulged the cost of the purchase of Domlek?
Yeah. Very soon we'll do that. We'll do that very soon. First of all, we believe that this is the right decision taken by the government to acquire Domlek, as the controlling shares in Domlek. We believe that as a country, we should always have control or at least certain influences over the provision of potable water and electricity to consumers. These are national security considerations. And the circumstances under which we sold our controlling shares in Domlek back then was unfortunate. When we sold Domlek, we were desperate for money in 1996. And we sold it for much less than it was valued. And not only that, but we also, the government of the day, so I'm very careful to say we, the government of the day, also guaranteed loans to that company from the CDB. So we not only sell it for less than what it's worth, we went ahead and we guaranteed a loan for them to build this road and this power station. They said at Hillsborough going towards Warner. The road had started before the 2000 elections, but since nothing happened on there. Plus, we also the UWP also guaranteed a 15% return on the investment, which means that it encouraged them to be inefficient, because they knew that the law allows them to get 15%. There's no other company, not even Dowasco. Dowasco doesn't have that privilege to have a guaranteed return on investment. Is what I'm saying. But we give it to Domlek, having sold it for much less than what is done. When I reveal to the country how much we paid for it, Dominicans will appreciate the capacity of this government to negotiate. And what we did was that we bought the holding company from Emera. There's a holding company that was registered in St. Lucia. We bought this company which held the 52% shares. And this allowed us now to be able to acquire the 52% for a much lower market value than what we would have paid otherwise. Okay? And I will say to you too that the first submission by Emera to us in terms of the price they were looking at, we were able to bring them down by a significant number from what they originally proposed. And I can tell you as much as about 50 to 60% of what they originally proposed to us. Not 56, more than that. I think we paid about a third of what they originally asked us for. So we reduced this dramatically. And so I think the Dominican people were able to get a bonanza in terms of the negotiation of what you ended up paying for Domlek and so forth. And I believe that the country would have been in a much better position had they had the Labour Party in government between 1995 and 2000 to negotiate on behalf of Dominica. But first of all, we not sold Dominica anyway. But if we were going to sell it, we certainly have got much more than what was received. The bigger plan there, though, is to look at the geothermal and how do we position the geothermal to help reduce the cost of energy to our people. That's the ultimate there. It's to use renewable energy. So this is part of our government overall strategy. So now that we have the distributor, we're going to be controlling the generation and the transmission. Then we can cut on all of the extra fat that would normally be present if people don't take into consideration the circumstance of the citizens of Dominica, the businesses in Dominica. So, and of course, we made it very clear that the company has to run in a professional manner. If you don't pay your electricity bill, you're likely to be cut. There'll be zero political influence. So don't go to a parliament and ask if he can call Dominic for you. He has no authority to call Dominic for you. Zero. There's no minister, no government, including myself, who's going to call Dominic and say, connect you. What we encourage people to do, though, is to go the route of pay as you go. That will help them manage their energy usage and so on. But I think Dominicans should be proud, irrespective of political inclination, that we have been able to bring back Dominic into state control and to have control over the generation, distribution of energy in Dominica.
You have a solid management team at Dominic, with Label Mackenzie, who continues to head that.
Well, I do not know what the future holds, but I can say that I have the greatest of confidence in Mrs. Mackenzie, in her abilities and her capacity, and this is why we've decided to keep her there as the general manager, to continue management of Dominic. As a matter of fact, we worked very well with her after Hurricane Maria. We did not speak a lot of the support that we gave to Dominic in the restoration of electricity. You know, the government did not sit on his hands. We got in there, we mobilized resources for Dominic, human and financial resources. We provided them with staff. We paid some of the staff, engineers for them to push. This is why this is one of the reasons why we got back electricity so quickly. You know, we're not boasting here. We're just giving the facts. You know, but we have every confidence in there. And my hope is that everybody will conduct themselves in a responsible, prudent manner. That we don't play games, and that this is about our country, and we have to put our country first, and set aside any differences or any differences that we may have. But look at the seriousness and the professional running of Dominic.
Prime Minister, Caricom appears to be divided on the nominee for the Commonwealth Secretary General, a position held by the Dominican Patricia Scotland. In fact, Jamaica only yesterday began to ask for people to vote for their nominee. What does that mean for Caricom, and what is your message to Caricom on that matter?
Well, you know, as you know, I've been around the table Caricom for some time. It is not my style to engage in any public sparring with anybody on any issue. This is not my style. It's unfortunate that we came to this, just literally days after a decision taken at the Caricom meeting in Belize. We believe, and based on all reports, that Baroness Scotland has served with distinction. She was sent there to make changes, as was requested by the heads of government, heads of state of the Commonwealth. The reality is, when you go into places and you make changes, you're going to step on some people's toes, and some people may not be happy about it. So sometimes we ask for things, when we get it, we don't like it. You see, so that's part of the problem. But when you look at capacity and qualifications and understanding of global issues, I mean, and I'm not saying so because she's a Dominican. You know, she comes with some very serious credentials. And what we're saying, look, she served a 4-year term. She has already served 2 years in the second term. So really, all that was being requested was for the confirmation of her second term, and then all she'll have left is 2 years, so that her appointment would come to an end 2 years from this year. You see that? So that should have completed the 4-year second term. You know, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, you know, we're not at war with Jamaica. We're not at odds with Jamaica. So so it's not a, you know, we're not on any discord with Jamaica at all. But it's unfortunate that that has happened.
Then how optimistic are you, along with your other colleagues, in she getting through?
Well, we're very confident. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, countries have to vote. You know, and we know how elections run. You know, so but we're very confident that that she can go through. But we will not want to have any kind of divisive, contentious elections. If you go into this with a divided approach, a divisive approach, or you know, whoever becomes victorious would have a difficulty in properly functioning in that office. You see, so it is not in the interest of the Commonwealth, and neither is it to the benefit of any of the candidates to be to be seen in a divided, contentious situation, especially when these two candidates come from the region. You see, so it is something that we have to continue to discuss and assess, and to watch.
Electoral reform. So much has been said about that. So Dennis Byron, he's supposed to have delivered a report. It's been pushed back, pushed back, pushed back. What is the latest as we speak?
Well, it's not. I think the question should really be asked of the chairman of the Electoral Commission. I have not been in touch with Sir Dennis Byron on this matter, we have had as a party an interface with him, like he did with many other organizations, including the ELP. There was one request from me as Minister of Finance for the engagement of a draftsperson, legal draftsperson, to draft legislation which have been recommended by Sir Dennis in his report. So that my understanding, based on the correspondence I got, was that those draft legislation would form part of his report. So my understanding is that the report is ready, that they're now waiting for legislation to actualize the report. And in that request to me, really, the gist of the request to me was for the making of funds available in the sum of US $72,000 to pay for the services of the legal draftsperson, and which I've approved. That has been processed, and but that notwithstanding, work, I understand, commenced, and so forth. So we wait with eagerness on the report from Sir Dennis Byron. I'm hoping that you know, whatever report he sends we can find consensus in this and put this on the side. Those of us who say that we're interested in electoral reform, you know, we need to be serious and let us advance the processes and the changes that are required to address any perceptions that people may have. But we must never give people an impression that this country has not had or doesn't have free and fair elections. You know, that is something that we have to avoid. Yes, everything is a review at any time. But for anybody in this country to say that this elections have been free and fair in Dominica, or I was prevented to vote, or that person voted for me, and so on, this is not the case in Dominica for sure. And the reports from independent entities have confirmed that.
Would you expect electoral reform before our next election in Dominica?
I want that. I certainly, as the leader of the Labour Party, would want to have this thing settled completely. Let's pass the legislation. Let's start the process, you know, as per the legislation and the recommendations of Sir Dennis Byron. Let's go ahead with it, and certainly I would like to have this thing, you know, dealt with long before the elections are constitutionally due.
As we speak about elections, we have a situation in St. Kitts Nevis. That situation is very, very interesting. I don't know whether you have spoken to the Prime Minister or you've made contact with St. Kitts. Is there anything you can comment on as the situation continues?
Well, I've spoken to the Prime Minister. I've been in touch with the Prime Minister. Also, I've been in touch with other political figures in the Federation. There's not things I can discuss in the public domain, so what I discuss with the personalities there. I'm hoping that they can find some kind of understanding and, you know, and deal with the issues. This is an internal issue in St. Kitts and Nevis, and it's not something I want to give any opinion on. It's not right for me to do. You know, but I'm hoping that with dialogue and consultation, they can find a solution to the issues. Because at this time, every country would need a government in place, you know, and we have this war. If it's in Russia and Ukraine, we're still recovering from COVID. There's still COVID cases around. We're seeing some spikes in some countries. So COVID is not over altogether. And we're hoping that the internal matters can be resolved and that they can go about the work of building St. Kitts and Nevis. But that's for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to deal with. And if they believe that we can help in any way, then we're available. But outside of that, I would not want to give any opinion on this matter.
You've said repeatedly, PM, that there is not a general election close. However, some political pundits feel that the way things are going on in the country, you may want to head down the Barbados route. You've also stated that you would want to have electoral reform settled, fully settled, before a next general election in Dominica. How, putting those two things on the table, a snap general election, if you see all the sticks on the table.
Well, I'm happy to hear that opposition elements are saying that a lot of things are happening in Dominica, not just in COVID-19, and that so many things are happening. It looks like elections are imminent. So I'm happy that finally, in not a direct way, but you know, sometimes this, to say that so much happening when so many homes we live in and look contracts and look, this CDB was there and the CDB just gave Dominica $68 million for the water project and for the Lubet to Bacatel Road and $239 million for just the water and for the road. Boy, you know, hearing that, boy. And look, Skerrit in Scott Sedville and House and in Peebush, and look at we just up in the flower show there. They give them $100,000 every year, and he's gonna build some stuff for them, and you know, and we're hearing about a marina and look, airport moving nicely and no problem, and you know, so I understand that. I understand people normally, you know, people see these things in other countries, but this government has been known for doing work throughout the 5 years. This is not uncharacteristic of this Labour Party. We have always been doing things. We don't wait for election time to do work, you know. But for us to, the kinds of things that we see happening in Dominica during this pandemic, when your revenue dropped by 33.3%, understand? You have to mobilize millions to fight COVID-19 and to keep people alive. You know, I mean, it is extraordinary. You know, extraordinary. You know, and just speaking to Paho, and the independent assessment is that, you know, the governance arrangements we put in place for COVID-19 were exceptional. As a matter of fact, they're saying that this thing should be documented and be shared. You know, that the government listened to the science, listened to the advice of the experts, had a clear plan and a clear strategy in combating COVID-19 and keeping all people safe. To the point now we are fully open up. All kind of activities can take place in Dominica. Obviously mindful of the fact for us to wear a mask and to hand sanitize and to be vigilant and to protect ourselves. So I understand that what the opposition is saying and that so many things happen in Dominica that it really look like election is close. But I don't think any elections are close. We are focusing on building this country and building a dynamic Dominica. You know, we are advancing heavily in agriculture. As you know, we have set ourselves a target of growing agriculture to the point where it can contribute $700 million to the economy, to the GDP by 2030. You know, and we have articulated some actions we need to take to get us there. We're going to be putting a task force in place of farmers and fishermen and poultry and pork farmers and supermarkets to deal with the issue of value chain. Just on Friday, I had a meeting with the cabinet again, We're going to be dramatically reorienting the Ministry of Agriculture, dramatically reorienting the Ministry of Trade to ensure that we can focus on markets for our fresh produce, on markets for our manufactured goods, on markets for our value-added goods, so that the same way we're promoting tourism in Dominica, the same way we're going to promote agriculture in Dominica and agricultural products and the things we manufacture in Dominica, where there'll be trade delegations going to every single island to meet with governments, to meet with supermarkets, to meet with hotels, to meet with the purchaser of fresh produce and processed goods, so that we can open up markets and sustain markets for farmers and so forth. So you're going to see a real push in those areas, you know, in a practical manner, and to ensure that we can reduce on our food import bill. The things that we can produce in Dominica, let's produce them and let's consume them, so that farmers can have more money in their pockets and they can develop themselves and develop their families. And so, so there's a number of very exciting things happening in Dominica. And so I'm happy, and I want to thank the opposition for recognizing that.
Budget 2022 can be described as probably one of the most interesting presentations that you will make in the history of Dominica, in light of some setbacks that we've experienced, COVID-19 and so on. What is expected to be some of the contents of your budget for 2022?
I cannot speak to that now. I think we'll have to wait to hear them. Just to say that this government knows what adversity is. And at every turn, we have been able to surmount. Maria came, and we said we were going to build 2 communities. People didn't believe me. Okay, I told them I'm going to build a new Pilsavan, I'm going to build a new Dubik. Not even the people there believe me, because how are you going to happen? How are you going to raise the money to do it? Where are you getting the land to do it? And it happened. When Maria hit, you know, the country flattened, everybody lost hope. Everybody had given up. You know, people were looking to the skies and to the mountains, from whence its strength cometh, looking for hope. People had lost faith even in God when the hurricane came, because they lost everything. You know, they were in a state of despondency, you know, and depression. You understand? And by the grace of God, we have been able to pull our country through. And likewise with the prolonged presence of the pandemic, no doubt it has had a serious impact on us, but we projected to grow by close to 4%. You understand? Notwithstanding all of these things. And these things, you don't grow by just buying and selling things. You grow by creating money and spending, bringing in money to spend in the country and creating economic activity. And I think, so we will certainly get there. We have always presented, I believe, and based on the reaction of the population, we've always presented very progressive budgets. I mean, look at the one last year. And there's so many concessions we were able to give in last year's budget. And last year's budget was very, very uplifting and motivational, you know, and give people hope and the confidence that you need. That's what the budget has to do, you know. You can't do everything in the budget because it's just 12 months, but you have to inspire hope and confidence and to set a clear path as to what you want to achieve in that particular 12 months. To add to what you achieve already and to look to the future.
Prime Minister, while it has been said that we will see growth of about 4% this year, there are some who feel that when you look at the economy, when you look at things on the ground, that situation is very different. People feel that there may be unemployment, and people may feel that the young people may not be getting the jobs that they look for. How do you answer to these concerns by people who feel that the economy is not what it's supposed to be? Well,
I mean, we're not necessarily satisfied or sitting on our laurels with a 4% growth in the economy. So we're not saying that. You'll always have challenges. People always have challenges. One of the things I believe that we have to watch in Dominica is the issue of our use of money. You see, too many of us spend money when money is supposed to be managed. And you see, at the end of the day, we have to set priorities too. So we have to look at our spending practices. And I'm not here to lecture people on how to spend the money. That's a matter for people to spend the money. They have the money, they buy whatever they want. But when you buy whatever you want, there will be consequences of what you have, based on our actions. There will be positive consequences and negative consequences. The reality is there are jobs in the economy. Look, we have worked with Clare Harbour, for example, to create 300 jobs in the North of Dominica. There we spent close to over $2 million to retrofit this building as our contribution to job creation. You understand? The number of construction projects taking place, there are jobs available. So and of course we're building the hotels there, and hotels are opening, and as you go, you're opening, and more people have been engaged, more people coming in. With the direct flight from the United States of America, we're seeing an increase in visitor arrivals in Dominica, and hoping that we can build on this towards the international airport. So you always have people who may not necessarily feel it to the extent that they would like to feel it, or they'll have challenges. You know, that's how the world is. That's how the society is. But the reality is there's economic activity taking place, and there'll be growth in the economy that benefits every single person in Dominica. And so I understand something what all people feel, because there's some families, because of the income and their expenses, sometimes they have to juggle. You understand? So I understand that reality. They have to juggle. And this is why we have been helping with where housing is concerned, for example, to provide people with improved housing conditions so that they don't have to pay rent. But the point is, I always say to folks, if you get a house and you're paying rent of $900 before this house, save $400. You understand? Save $400. Don't find something to do with $900, because you're paying somebody $900. No, you don't have to pay anybody $900 because you have a house. So I'm asking you to save $900 because I'm being practical, because some of us would have had to forgo certain things to pay the rent, because that's our priority. But now you don't have to pay the rent. So my advice would be for you to save $400. You know, we have to try to be more. We have to save. You know, we have to save and for a rainy day, so that we do not create unnecessary pressures on ourselves when we fall on difficult times.
Yeah, speaking about saving, etc., I know the income tax year came to an end, and you gave a 1-month extension. Some time ago, remember the press conference, you revealed that there are a number of persons who owe in the state, and you had given them an ultimatum, and they were owing hundreds and thousands of dollars. What is the situation right now in terms of people owing the state, and how good are they making their payment?
Yeah, I must say that during the amnesty and also the extended amnesty, quite a number of people took advantage of that opportunity, and we were able to save several companies and individuals literally millions of dollars because of the removal or the waiver of the interest and penalties on those sums. So a lot of people made these payments. You know, the reality is every country in the world, taxpayers will owe the government for one reason or the other. It's important that we pay our taxes, because if we don't pay our taxes, the government projects it's gonna raise $100 million, and we only collect 50. One can understand the impact on the government's ability to provide goods and services, to fix your roads, to fix the schools, to build health centers, etc., etc. You know, to help you travel overseas if you have to seek medical attention. You know, people have to start thinking of where government gets this money from. You see? And so if we don't pay our taxes, then we're denying the government the ability, or preventing the government from being able to provide adequately for the country. And so it's important for us to pay our taxes. And where we have difficulties, we have to engage the tax authority to make certain arrangements. But we cannot, year in, year out, be indifferent to our legal obligations. And the reality is, all of those taxes are not taxes coming from the businesses themselves. These are monies people pay to them on behalf of the state. So because that's why VAT is supposed to be a separate item. So it's not the businesses giving us the VAT money. They're not paying the taxes. You, the consumers who go there and buy, and you pay VAT, and they're just collecting it for the government. And what they should be doing is to remit this thing, put in a separate cash tin, and give to the tax person, to the tax authority. You see, then you have situations where people deduct income tax from employees' salaries and don't pay it. They don't remit it. So you have those issues there that we have to be mindful of in terms of our civic responsibility to our country.
There has been a long-standing impasse between longshoremen and stevedores at the Dominica ANC Port Authority. They're claiming that they lost 33% of their salaries in 2001. They've asked the government to intervene to see whether that matter can come to a halt. Are you aware of that issue, and is there anything the government is doing to relieve the plight of these employees at the port?
I'm not sure they have any plight. I mean, the guys make a lot of money. I understand they have an outstanding issue, so we should not mix. Because when I see what these folks go on with, I mean, they're not doing too badly at all. So but there's this outstanding issue which had gone to a tribunal that has been adversely delayed for many reasons. I had intervened, or I had sought to intervene back then by discussing with the representatives of the union and the diaspora with a view to settling the matter outside of the tribunal. Apparently, the representative of the union at the time did not share those sentiments with the membership. So we've been trying to meet, all fairness with the current leadership of the union, they have been trying to meet with me, or we were trying to meet with each other, but we have not been able to do so. I'm hoping that very soon we can have a meeting and to see what kind of solution, so that this difference of opinion that exists between the diaspora and the longshoremen can be addressed, you know, and one of the things I believe that they have to be mindful of is the monetary request they have before the port cannot be considered. I mean, they have to be more reasonable. You see what I'm saying? They have to be more reasonable, and I think if there is some reasonableness on their part, I think we can find a solution. But I did many years ago speak to them. We had two very cordial, respectful meetings. But sometimes, you know, in these things, people like to play politics, and the union people did not pass on the information to the membership. I found that out when having spoken to some of them later on, and they would say that they were never aware of that. And had they been aware of that, they would have rushed to settle the matter back then.
Kim, a lot has been said about that, your house, the house that you're renting. I remember the last time I was there, you did say that within a certain period, you would ensure that you are out of there. What is the latest position as it relates to that?
I'm hoping very soon that I don't have to answer a question to anybody in the public about the residence or where the Prime Minister lives, because I certainly, you know, the state certainly won't be paying a house for me. I have decided to move ahead with the construction of a dwelling for myself and my family, so that I will not subject myself and my family to any more indignities from anyone. For a Prime Minister that has served this country for 18 years, that has mobilized billions of dollars for this country, that has rebuilt this country after numerous external shocks and natural disasters, you know, that's not how we treat people. And I'm hoping that this country never treats a Prime Minister in the future like this. But that's okay. I am not a person who holds grudges. I'm hurt by it, but I don't hold grudges. And so I look forward to being able to walk in my own yard and not in the premises of the government very soon. by the grace of God, and I thank the Lord for giving me the ability to be able to go to a financial institution and to contract a loan. I should not have to be subjecting myself to this huge debt at this time, because people feel that the Prime Minister should be homeless. But only in Dominica that I know that, you know, there are countries, even in this Caribbean, where you have official residence of the Prime Minister that's not even occupied, but being maintained fully. And from time to time, the Prime Minister may want to have a function there, and they go in there and have a function there. But it's fully staffed. It's fully pedicured and manicured and everything else. But here in Dominica, we always feel that, you know, the Prime Minister should be on the bus stand, hitchhiking a right to come to work. And that that's how we see it. I don't know where we get it from, but that's fine. But certainly, the next time you might be quizzing me, for my own residence. so that the government can use the 42,000 it's paying for the rent for whatever else it believes that it can be use all the money from. Yeah.
The government of Dominica has approved a World Creole Music Festival. Jazz and Creole Festival will take place on the 1st of May. I've not heard anything about a carnival yet. Is that being discussed, a carnival in 2023? Is that being discussed by the government at the moment?
I'm not aware whether the Ministry of Tourism is having internal discussions. I don't know. But certainly I have given the go-ahead for the hosting of the jazz, and certainly the hosting of Creole Festival. I have not received any proposals for carnival, but for now, certainly we'll have jazz, and certainly we'll have Creole Festival. And certainly we'll have international cricket this year as well.
Let's speak about the international airport. Where are we right now? I know some testing has been or is being done, but what is the latest position as we speak?
Yeah, a lot of things happening. I mean, a lot of things happening. As you know, this is a huge project with so many different parts, involving so many different people and so many different entities. A lot's happening. Very soon, I guess later this year, you will see actual earth movement taking place there. This is why we've brought in ECHA before we move to the next phase, because I have made it very clear to the government, to ourselves, that we need to ensure that ECHA and IKO are fully involved in the process. We don't want to go ahead of them. Before we go to our next point, they need to come and do their own independent investigation. They need to come into their own independent assessment. Where they think we're going right, tell us. Where they think we're going wrong, tell us, and what they recommend that we need to do to fix where we're going wrong, and so forth. So that's why ECHA is here, before we move to the next stage and so forth. But and I believe in the next few weeks, what we will do is to share the updated designs with the country, so that people have an appreciation of what we're doing. But the airport is on its way, and by the grace of God, it will be built, and certainly it will help transform the economic landscape of Dominica, because I am confident that once we get this international airport, we will see people coming in, people descending on Dominica, because that in itself will certainly address the issue of access to Dominica. I mean, just see what American Airlines is doing. Does this one flight, this one company from Miami. Just imagine if we have the direct flights from New York and from the UK and from France, etc. So that's what we're working towards, and we are working diligently on this. The amount of work that we have done in this short period of time, normally these things take you 8-9 years to really put together. But we have a team of highly dedicated people within the public service, the Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Henderson there. We have Mr. Lloyd, you know, Mr. Johnson is exceptional, who is the CEO. Also Dr. McIntyre. We have Miriam Blanchard, who helps us on a number of things. The Financial Secretary has been exceptional. You know, Mr. Badwill, the board members of the International Airport Development Company. There's so many people who play in the part, and Mr. Marcus Lestrade, the Commissioner of Lands, you know, in the surveying, because there's a lot of things happening there, you know. But I'm also highlighting some of the public servants who work diligently, and what this small team has been able to do, you really require 5 times that number to do the same amount of work. But because they have this intrinsic motivation and the determination, we have been able to overcome, to advance a lot of work and so forth. And so we're very grateful to all of them for their efforts.
You said a few months ago a new Dominica Grammar School would be constructed. You wanted to be the point person, so to speak, to see the process go through. One gets the impression that grammar school is now under construction, or works have begun?
Yeah, works have begun. We have 2 phases to the project. One is the retrofitting of the existing buildings to improve the aesthetics and to let it be compatible with the overall design of the grammar school. And the second are the new wings of grammar school, including the playing facilities, including the massive auditorium that we will construct. It is really going to be an edifice to behold. You know, we can argue this point, you know, for some also from different schools. You know, grammar school has been the premier secondary school in Dominica, being one of the oldest in Dominica. And certainly we need to do something about the condition of the grammar school. So I'm happy that we're advancing this, and the work has actually started. If you drive there, you'll see work has started. And old boys and new boys will certainly be excited about this grammar school. But it will be, outside of the aesthetics, it will be very, very conducive for learning. You know, and you've seen the new Maho Primary School that's coming to completion. You know, and the quality of the construction, the quality of the design, the aesthetics. They're not building a building. You know, we have to build in the modern times. You know, and the building must be aesthetically pleasing and exciting. So grammar school is well on its way, and we're very happy for that, finally.
That construction comes just a few years after there was a grammar school built. So the question is, what has happened? Because there is presently a Dominica grammar school.
The grammar school is not adequate, and so we were still using the oldest section of the grammar school, including some core houses at the grammar school. So we have demolished the old structure of grammar school, the main structure of the grammar school. There's one section that is still structurally sound with all of the stonework, so that has been retrofitted. But the rest of the grammar school, as we know it, has been completely demolished. And so we'll be reconstructing those areas, those sections, from foundation to roof and so forth.
What happens to the existing?
The existing one will be improved. There will be some work done on the windows, the doors, the repainting, tiling, you know, and getting it to be aesthetically and architecturally compatible with the rest of the grammar school, so that it all blends in there. So this is what we're going to be doing in our grammar school.
Healthcare PM, we know we have this upgraded hospital, but I'm hearing a lot of talk that some persons are saying they are not happy with the management aspect of the hospital. And yes, we're getting new equipment and so on, but the management aspect of the hospital seems to be a major issue.
Well, I mean, we do have issues there, and we do have concerns there. I mean, it concerns me when I hear complaints from the public. One complaint from the public is one complaint too many. So if there are 5 and 10, then there's a serious issue. So this is why we have power here. So in an effort to address, because these are perennial issues, these are not two-day issues. We've always heard complaints about going to the hospital. We've always heard complaints about getting assistance. People say that they have to wait for a long time before a doctor comes, and sometimes no doctor shows up, etc., etc. People go sit there, they go when they're at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I did not leave there until 1 o'clock next morning. So we've always had those complaints. But these complaints that we have to try to get rid of them by addressing the concerns of the public. And so what we have sought to do is to put in a new management structure in place by creating the hospital authority. But we always recognize that by simply creating the hospital authority, you won't wish the problems away. because there are a lot of systemic and structural issues that you have to address. It's not only about the delivery of service, but all of the component parts that you have to address. Because if one is not working properly, it's going to have an impact on the other. And so how do we get all of these component parts to be working together with the ultimate goal of providing the best medical service and care to people who come to receive it? If a hospital cannot provide the best medical care to people, then it's not a hospital. You understand? And it must be patient-focused. It can't be about doctor, it can't be about the nurse, it can't be about the pharmacist, it must be about the patient, like a school. If a school, we're only preoccupied with teachers and principal and not about the student and student learning, it's no longer a school. You can call it a church, you can call it any other thing, a disco. You understand? The only reason why you call it a school because it's focusing on student and children's education. And likewise, we call it a hospital because it is focusing on patient care. So what we're doing is that we've brought in, I went to PAO and I said, look, we need help in addressing this issue. So what PAO has done, PAO was providing us with some experts who can come in and to help create this plan, and they'll be having people there, a couple of people there resident in Dominica to help the board and the management in addressing these issues. And so they'll be having workshops with all stakeholders. And what we're doing also with regards to the support from PAO is not only looking at the hospital, but at healthcare nationally. And to ensure how can we deal with the issue of the cost of medical care in Dominica? How can we continue to ensure that there's universal access to health care? That anybody who goes to a hospital or health center can see a doctor, can see a nurse? And how can we move away from looking at the provision of health care in a transactional manner? Meaning, unless you pay, you won't get this service. You know, we have to provide the service and then get paid. You see what I'm saying? But, so there are a lot of issues that we have to address. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm not blaming anybody. But it is an issue that we have to address as a nation, all of us. Patients, those of us who go there, doctors, nurses, administrators, etc. Because sometimes we as patients, we go there and from the time we go there, we believe that we have the most severe ailment, but we have had a toothache for weeks. And now the toothache bursts in our tail and we have a headache. And we figure that this is an emergency. You see what I'm saying? But you take 2 paracetamol and you go to bed. You know, and next morning you go to the dentist and you fix it up. But when we go there, we want it now. And you may see somebody come after us. And that person went in. But that person had an accident. That person is unconscious. So the doctor has to make the rational decision. Who do I provide care to first? But if you're walking around and you're on your phone talking to your boyfriend at home and tell him, all right, at the hospital still, I'm just there waiting for your doctor and so on. And an ambulance comes with somebody, you siren and so on. What do you do? So we have to look at this thing from a holistic standpoint and not point finger at doctors or not point finger at nurses and not point finger at the hospital or the Minister for Health and so on. It's to say, well, these are the things that I believe we need to do to allow everybody to be comfortable. And so this is what the government is seeking to do with the assistance of PAHO, to seek to come in and independently assess things and to advise on what. We know some of the issues, the board knows some of the issues, the management knows some of the issues, but sometimes it's always good to get independent help and advice on how to go about addressing those issues. So that's where we are on this. And I'm very confident if we can get over this, then a lot of the complaints that we have, it won't get all of them out completely, because as long as we have human beings on earth, we'll always have complaints. But at least we are mindful of the issues and are prepared to take action on them.
Prime Minister, what about Parliament for 2022? Some people feel that the Parliament of Dominica, you all don't meet sufficiently. Can you give us an idea what the agenda for the Parliament will be like for 2022?
Well, hopefully we'll go there before the budget of 2022. There are a number of important pieces of legislation that we will have to pass. One of them being a virtuous asset bill. The other has to do with a number of bills at the Ministry of Social Services, the maintenance bill and family bills and so on that we need to enact. So we'll be moving ahead with those. But yes, I hear the complaint, but people say we should meet more often. and so forth. So I tend to agree with that, and it is something that we always seek to do. But when you have a very small legal drafting team, you know, and everything has to go through them, you have to sometimes wait for this, and then you have to go through the consultations, and you just, so for example, we had the Public Service Management Bill. That could have been passed since last year. But we have to discuss with the police, we have to discuss with the PSU, we have to discuss with the teachers. Everybody has a view. You have to assess the view, you have to come back to them, you know? And so sometimes the same people who complain that we should meet more often or we should pass this. If you go and you don't consult with them or you set aside their recommendations, how would they react? So the process of democracy is not always fast, you know? We have to be mindful of people's views and seek to take them on board as far as practicable. Other countries where you meet every so often, there's also a time they go to recess. But sometimes they may have a meeting and nothing really on the agenda. But what we've seen when we go to Parliament, we spend several days there with a very long agenda of items and so forth. So we try to make use of our time in a more efficient manner. Okay, but I'm told that we have come to the end of the question sessions. As you know, I'm always available otherwise, but I always believe that it's important for questions to be asked and answer you in a transparent manner and the information I have. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. For me, getting questions from the public, including journalists, is the most important part of the public engagement, because people ask questions of concerns, like questions of things which concern them. And so I get a better appreciation for how people think in the society and what are the challenges they have, what are the dreams and aspirations, of what they like and what they don't like. And because ultimately we are there representing the interests of the people. And we have to do what the people say they want us to do, what they determine to be priorities. So I want to thank you, Curtis, and thank you, Carlisle. I do hope that one day I'll be invited to a ceremony at one of the churches in Dominica. I won't say what ceremony that is, but at some point I continue to pray that this will happen. I see everybody's smiling and laughing all over the country now to distinguish journalists with me. But thank you, everybody. God bless you. Have a wonderful week. Let us go forth and serve our country and our God, and let us be diligent, and let us always stand in defense of our patrimony, in defense of our country, Dominica. Thank you very much. Good night.